Welcome back, guys. This is our way too early playoff prediction bracket. We have done an AFC predictor and an NFC predictor. So if you guys haven't seen those, make sure you go watch those first. We'll include the links in the description so you guys can watch that. But I am Cesar.
I'm Brian, and this is Bohemian Gents.
Alright guys, we're going to get kicked off here by just listing off the teams that we're going to have in the playoffs. We're going to start off with the NFC. Yes. We'll get to our NFC championship, our NFC champion winner. Then we'll do AFC, and then we'll talk about the Super Bowl at the end. So as my NFC playoff teams, I have the Bucks as the number 1 seed. I have the Rams coming in second, Packers in third, Giants in fourth, Seahawks with the first wild card spot, Niners with the second wild card spot, and my sad, lonely Saints taking up the third wild card spot. What do you have as your playoff teams, Brian?
Unfortunately, with the best record in the NFC, I believe it will be the Bucks, followed by the Cardinals, then the Bears. The Giants somehow get home field advantage again. Then we got the Packers, the Rams, and then the Seahawks.
So we're pretty split up. Our teams are kind of all over the place. So the way it's going to break down is we each go in game by game, picking our winners, and we'll kind of move on that way. So the Bucks, obviously, we both have as our number 1 team, yes. So they get the only bye. So that's a pretty easy that one in there. So my first wild card game will be the Rams versus the Saints. Mm-hmm. Repeat of the NFC Championship game from a couple years ago, and unfortunately, this game will not be competitive. I think it'll be a pretty easy game for the Rams. Unfortunately for my Saints, I think they'll be champs throughout the season. Kind of just figuring out their locker room and things like that. But it'll be a pretty easy win for the Rams. And then I'll have the Packers against the Niners. Mm-hmm. That'll probably be the game of the game to watch in the wildcard division for me. And I do have the Packers in a very narrow win over the Niners. And then Giants versus Seahawks. Seahawks at Giants, because the Giants are going to be the divisional. In this situation, even though the Seahawks will have the better record, and I do think they'll handle the Giants pretty easily as well. So those will be my winners. How does your wild card weekend look?
These are going to be the real playoff scenarios on this side, okay, guys? So if you're going to bet money, this is who you got to listen to. Just kidding. I am not an official advisor. Everything I say is my own opinion.
All for entertainment.
If you have a gambling issue, please call the proper officials. So the Bucks are going to get the bye, unfortunately. But then my first game of the wild card season would be the Cardinals versus the Seahawks. Even though I do have the Cardinals winning that division, I do think the Seahawks can go into Arizona, into the Phoenix University Stadium, and get the W on the road. We would then have the Bears versus the Rams. And I do think that the Bears would be able to physically dominate the Rams in Soldier Field. So I got the Bears taking that W. And then we got the Packers at the Giants, and it's going to be a blowout. I don't think the Giants are going to want to be there. And I think the Packers will win by at least 3 touchdowns in that final wild card game.
Gotcha. Okay, so pretty easy wild card weekend for you on there. So we can move into the divisional. Mm-hmm. I have the Bucks versus the Seahawks, and the Rams versus the Packers. The first game, Bucks versus Seahawks, I think that's going to be a very competitive game. I do think the Seahawks will give the Bucks a run for their money in that game, but as much as I hate to say it, you can't bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs. So I do think the Bucks will end up sneaking that game out. Yeah. Very close. I'm thinking maybe like a 24-23 game, something like that.
I can see that.
Super close game. And then I have the Rams versus the Packers as the second divisional game. This game I do not think will be close. I do think the Packers locker room will be pretty messed up at this point. Rodgers, being the phenomenal talent he is, will be able to carry them into the playoffs and past the wild card round, but I do not think he'll be a match for a fully loaded Rams team. So I do have the Bucks and the Rams meeting for the conference, for the NFC Championship game. How do you see it?
In my divisional round, I have the Bucks versus the Seahawks as well. I do see the Bucks honestly, I could see it as a close game, but I can also see the Bucks winning like 37 to like 10, and the Seahawks just being dismantled and being uncohesive at the end of the season. I don't know why, but that's kind of what I'm seeing in my head. And then we probably have the best game, in my opinion. And then we'd have the Bears and the Packers. And just like the Seahawks and Cardinals in the first round, I think the team that wins the division loses a playoff game. I got the Packers beating the Bears. I think Justin Fields just won't be able to handle the pressure. And you got the King of the North going to a conference championship again.
Still can't believe you have the Bears in the divisional round. But I'll let you pick your NFC Championship first. How do you see that game going?
I got the King of the North, Aaron Rodgers.
Redemption, okay.
Redemption, getting revenge from last year, and finally just beating Brady. Go Packs.
Okay. Go Cheeseheads for you. So I got the Rams and the Bucks, and I did not know this at the beginning of the day, but this year's Super Bowl is in LA, and I think we're gonna have a repeat where we have a home Super Bowl game. I do think the Rams make up for the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and with Matthew Stafford at the helm versus Jared Goff, I do think they give the Bucks everything they can handle and more. It'll be a very close game, but I do think the Rams pull away late in that game. So the score will not resemble how close of a game it was, but I do have the Rams as my NFC champion.
So 2 quick things I want to point out. We both have the Bucks losing at the same weekend. And I can guarantee that Kershaw will be at that game if the Rams make it. Kershaw has to support his boy Stafford.
Definitely agreed. So now let's touch on the AFC side. I'll go ahead and just run through my teams. I do have the Chiefs as the number 1 seed, Bills closely behind them, Browns very closely behind them, and Titans rounding out the divisional winners. I have the Colts as my first wild card team, Ravens as the second wild card team, and the Pats stealing that third wild card spot. How do you see it?
So I got the Bills having the best record in the AFC, followed by a very, very competitive Chiefs team in second place. I got the Ravens in the 3rd seed winning the AFC North. I got the Colts winning the AFC South for the 4th spot there. Then I have the Titans, the Browns, and the Dolphins finishing out and rounding out my playoff score.
All right, so why don't you give us your wild card weekend picks first?
So I got the Chiefs dominating the Dolphins. The Dolphins have a good squad, but the Chiefs will win by multiple touchdowns. In the second game here, I would have the Browns beating the Ravens.
Ooh, okay. That's an interesting
upset
one.
alert.
Right.
And then I have the Colts beating the Titans like usual.
All right. You see how you see it. Obviously, I have the Chiefs as my number 1 seed, so they'll have the bye week. I have the Bills taking on the Patriots as their first game. I don't think that game will be very competitive. I think that's a pretty easy win for the Bills. I have the Browns taking on the Ravens. So we have this game the same, but just opposite seeding. I have it at the Browns. You have it at Ravens. And ironically enough, we both have the Browns winning that game. I do think the Browns are the better team, so I think they'll win that game in the playoffs. And then we have Titans and Colts. I do think the Titans will be the better regular season team, but I do think by this point the Colts will have their quarterback situation figured out and things like that. I do believe Wentz can come back to potential like MVP candidate Wentz by this point, putting up good solid numbers. So I do think they'll steal that game on the road and upset the Titans and win that game. And then I'll kind of just continue here for my divisional. So that would have the Chiefs facing the Colts and the Bills facing the Browns. Sorry, the Chiefs are gonna beat your Colts. It will be competitive. You're not gonna get blown out. And then I do have the Bills over the Browns. Yeah. I think that'll be a very fun game to watch. I do think the difference will be Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield. I don't think highly of Baker Mayfield, but I don't think he's incompetent either. Yeah. But obviously the talent that Josh Allen has is going to carry the Bills into the conference championship game. How's your divisional weekend looking?
So in that first game, I do have the Bills versus the Browns, and I think that Mayfield won't lose the game for the Browns, but I think Josh Allen is too talented with Stephon Diggs, so I do have the Bills winning that game. And then we have the Chiefs hosting the Colts. If the Colts are healthy, I think our defense can get after Mahomes again. We have won the last 2 games against them, so I can see us winning this game as well.
Okay. And why don't you just carry through into the conference? Who do you have as your AFC champion?
I feel a little biased, but it's probably because I watch the Colts a little more deeply than the average NFL fan. But I do have the Colts beating the Bills again. Or I have the Colts beating the Bills this season. Last year was a very competitive game in a windy afternoon in Buffalo. I think a couple unfortunate bounces happened for us, and the Bills were able to be the more resolute team the entire game. But I do have the Colts winning the AFC Championship game if we do get the Bills.
Okay. And so I have the Bills and the Chiefs. I am a big Patrick Mahomes fan, but I don't think he's going to a 3rd straight Super Bowl. I do think the Bills make up and end up winning the AFC this year. I do have Josh Allen as my MVP, so I do think he'll carry them past the Chiefs in a very competitive, high-scoring game. I'm thinking, 40 to 35 or something along those lines, because I don't think you can stop any of those quarterbacks. Yeah. So I do have the Bills as my AFC champion. So then that leaves the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl Sunday.
Super Bowl 55.
I believe so. Maybe. Yeah.
We'll put up the correct number. So I have the Rams versus the Bills as my Super Bowl. And we haven't talked about this yet, but I do, before I give my pick, I'm curious between these 2 teams, who would you have as your Super Bowl champion?
Out of these 2 squads, I have the Rams winning. I think they'll be the more complete team if they can establish the run game. But with Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, I think they'll be able to outscore the Bills. And then if Aaron Donald is able to penetrate that offensive line and get Josh Allen throwing off his back foot a bit, I think the Rams would win this game.
Interesting. Okay, so I was pretty strong supporter of the Rams throughout this whole video, and I do think Josh Allen is going to come spoil their party.
Their welcome home.
Their welcome home. Yeah, I do think Josh Allen at SoFi Stadium is gonna have a day. I think he's gonna carry them past the Rams, and we're gonna have Josh Allen winning his first Super Bowl. And that's how I see I have the Bills as my Super Bowl champion.
That would be exciting to the NFL. You have Mahomes, who just won a Super Bowl as a young quarterback. To have Josh Allen win a Super Bowl as well, I think it'd be very good for the NFL in the next generation. On my side, though, I have the Packers and the Colts, and I don't see anyone stopping Aaron Rodgers this year. I think he's angry. I think he wants to prove people wrong, and he might want to retire after this season. So he could pull a Peyton Manning and just win the Super Bowl in his last season and walk away and be truly remembered as the King of the North.
I strongly disagree with the team in the Super Bowl. But if that was the case, on a neutral field, like Los Angeles,
Yeah.
I do think the Colts are by far the more balanced team. And I'm very surprised that you're taking the Packers over the Colts. Very, very surprised to see that, actually, because I do not. If somehow the Packers do manage to make it to the Super Bowl, I don't think they can contend with the Colts. I do think the Colts would have. They're way more physical than them. I think they'll push them up and down the field, and it'll be a pretty easy win for the Colts, in my opinion. The Packers will put up points, but it's not going to be enough to contend with the Colts. But interesting. So you have the Packers as your.
I would have the Packers beating my Colts. The reason I have the Colts getting this far, like, obviously I love the Colts, they're my favorite team. But if somebody really looks at the past 3-4 matchups against the Chiefs and the Bills, we outplay them. There's been some penalties called, there's some missed extra points and field goals that have really cost us some games. But if you really look at the games, we're the more dominant team, we're the more physical team. We get more yardage, we get bigger plays. But with a team like the Packers, who can tear you up inside of the numbers in the passing game, even though we have Darius Leonard, who I really honestly believe is the best middle linebacker in the NFL, our secondary is pretty weak, and I don't think we'd be able to stop Packers and Rodgers and Devontae Adams. So I do see the Packers being able to win that game, possibly like 31-21. I think it'd be like a decent game, but I just think our philosophy is where the Packers would have the advantage with Matt LaFleur leading Rodgers.
Interesting. So obviously, like we said at the beginning, way too early. We're still early preseason games here, so we'll obviously take a look at this maybe a couple weeks, maybe halfway through the season. We reserve the right to make adjustments, guys, okay? Nothing's set in stone here.
This is with the disclaimer as well that all of these teams stay healthy, which,
of course,
which has never ever happened in the history of any sport.
There's always one.
But again, this is us running a simulation in Madden with the injuries off, and this is what we believe would happen.
A little disclaimer: Tom Brady retires. I do think it happens. I think not because he doesn't have any more football in him, but because Giselle finally gets her way. But thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Check out our other videos. We do other things besides sports. So a lot of stuff for you guys to watch there. We'll leave some links on there for you guys.
Deuces.
See you guys.